Everyone, this is Ivo Escobar from Part Fluency. A lot of people know that I am uh, advertising for a course that is based on 12 themes to help you learn English and participate in discussions with more confidence and more information on important social discussions. And that sounds very formal, but it's actually like I want to meet somebody online and start a good conversation with them instead of just saying, hey, how's it going? Good. Yeah, all right. See you later. And then you never see them again. So that's more or less my experience with the internet most of the time. So I decided to do this, but enough talk. If you want to know what this is, and if you have a bigger opinion about that, uh, but also if you are a professional and you want to have access to good quality material for improving your communication skills, visit bit.ly/fluência participativa. Now, why am I making this video? Yesterday, I was uh, listening to a Spaces on Twitter, and uh, Kara Swisher, Jon Stewart, and the new Twitter CEO, Mr. Paj, was they were all discussing a bunch of issues uh, in relation to platform use and stuff like that. Of course, they were talking about Twitter, but they were talking about media and the role of the platform, behaviors of users, and what we can do, where we're going. It was just interesting discussions for many reasons. They were also talking about privacy, I think, and it was very interesting to follow. But what I want to do here is uh, there's a specific topic that comes to my mind. And in the classes, the English classes that I offer, there is a theme where I more or less anticipate the kind of discussion that that we could have uh, with the student, depending on the background. I mean, if I'm able to do digital marketing effectively, and I'm speaking not only to people living in my city or my state, because so far I've had 3 students who completed this course, and they were all very good, and I posted a video and giving them feedback. If I were in a context of talking to the entire country, then a few things would change, especially because I don't know, somebody living in a small city in a state that is not, as wealthy as São Paulo will definitely have a very different perspective and a set of concerns. But because the internet exists, I think a lot of people started to study English, and communication is a main goal. I don't know what they're working with. I don't have the statistics for that. I don't work in the Geography and Statistics Institute of Brazil, so sorry, I don't have that information. But what I want to talk is in terms of things you're expected to do and things that you're expected to do, but you say, sorry, why is that? Why do I need to do that? And there's a lot of things that can be categorized into, I will try to avoid not using inappropriate language, so everybody can watch this, and people are incentivized to show this video to other people. So there's a lot of things that a lot of people agree with, and some things are a little bit more of a, you know, they have split opinions about them. I will drink my coffee and I will show you a small presentation. So basically, I want to talk about web policy. I would love this to not be shown while I'm doing the presentation. There you go. Web policy, controversy, and hypocrisy. That's the best words that I could come up with to talk about the state of the internet in 2022. Honestly, there's a lot of controversy. There's some people would prefer to use different words. Hypocrisy, yeah, is it a strong word? Yes, but if we're talking of the internet of 2022, you know, that's probably, you know, the best neutral term that indicates negative experiences on the part of internet users. Also, people work in companies and stuff and have to deal with stuff that they don't find very you know, illuminating and inspiring and stuff like that. There are many kinds of jobs, but we're talking about the web here. So you see people there, a person signing a contract, and in this case, when I'm talking about policy, I'm trying to make you think about internet terms of use and services, terms of use, application terms of use, website terms of use, and stuff like that. It's basically like a contract. When you read the terms of that contract, man, you're like, okay, I was not aware that they were doing that, collecting information, stuff like that. Because this discussion is over there, I want to skip to the most interesting parts. So let me just, what is policy? Let's see if we can define policy. All right. You have a picture of a formal setting, three people there, some people in a conversation with the background, in the background, but these three people are, and you can see it. When I was in college, I had a course that was it was more of a, you know, it changed every year. I think it was not something that every uh, English major had to do, but there was one of the, the course subjects. I'm not sure if it was in my fourth year, something like that. We studied gestures. It was, we studied something related to applied linguistics. I'm not sure if gesture studies are part of that. Later, I was working in a school that was, um, uh, I don't remember, I think it was a conversation class, and we were talking about, you know, TV shows. My students, it was just me and one other student. And to be honest, the situation was kind of weird because it was such a big room and I was alone with the student. Because it was a conversation class, they uh, had to put me in a room where I could play videos and stuff like that. But it was super weird because the room was huge and it was just me and one other student. He was a teenager. But at some point, I asked what kind of TV series he was more into, and he said, "Oh, teacher, have you ever watched a series called Lie to Me?" And I don't remember if it was him that made this recommendation to me, and then I started watching it. I think it was actually. I started watching it, and then it's kind of interesting because the guy's a specialist in uh, extra linguistic factors. So he studies, those people that say like, when you do this with your hair, when you uh, touch your eyes or something like this, it's a sign that either you're saying something difficult, in the case that you're touching your eye like that, or when you touch your hair, it's a sign that maybe you're about to tell a lie. It's kind of an interesting thing. Look at what this guy's saying. This guy's like putting two things together. Basically, the guy, I think it's such a good picture. My dad is a photographer, by the way, so I'm speaking this with a little bit more. I would like to speak more about this, but maybe I'm not the right person for it. I'm getting to the point. Just stick with me a little bit. The guy's mediating a conflict, right? Think of the role of the moderator. The guy's the moderator, but we are not talking about people discussing terms of use of the internet. This is probably some legal case, like, I don't know, a guy says that unless the price for his product is increased in 5%, he's not going to be able to close a deal with some kind of distribution company or whatever, some kind of some kind of the word now, retail company. The guy that is in distribution is trying to close a deal with the retailer, and the guy says, well, unless the price is this, you're not going to have a deal. And somebody is represented. I think we have the two sides here, and this guy is trying to come into an agreement, hearing both sides, and then this is his expression. This physical expression is putting two things together and trying to balance, things. They're probably lawyers, but you know what? This could be completely different. Maybe they are talking about the fact that, oh, somebody in the European Union is proposing a law that makes it illegal to take screenshots. Just like that. I mean, they imagine this, some phone manufacturers decided that they are going to make it, they would never make this illegal, but they decided that whenever you take a screenshot, they are going, the phone is going to produce a register. Actually, they already do this. Every app you install goes to a folder designated to this app if it has access to your camera. Every screenshot you take goes to the folder screenshot that is created the moment you start taking screenshots. They don't have this as a standard, but once you create a screenshot, it will go to the folder screenshots, and then you can delete them. But I don't know what you do with your screenshots. Anyways, let's think about policy, right? This is more like the question of personal use or beliefs or behavior. I don't know. It's hard to describe that, but imagine there's a policy for that. right? I mean, do you share private conversations that you had with your friends on freaking Facebook? Friend says something and then you go and say, oh, look at what this guy's saying. Do you do that? I mean, some people do. Some people would never do anything like this, you know? If they start doing this, it's going to be opening Pandora's box. Honestly, man, for younger people, it's going to be, yes. But it doesn't mean that only for younger people, it's going to be a huge problem. It's going to be a problem for everybody. And I don't have to go into details. That's why we need policy and people understand about it. Defining policy. Definition from the Collins Dictionary. A policy is a set of ideas or plans that is used as a basis for making decisions, especially in politics, economics, or business. The example that I'm giving here is totally unrelated with politics, economics, or business. It's just life. Communication. But isn't communication a business today? Huge part of economics, and isn't the way you communicate what defines who you're going to vote for and the things you say, how you say it. I mean, this is politics. So yeah, it's hard to define it, but this is the Collins definition. One of the Collins definitions of policy. They also say that some of the synonyms are procedure, plan, action, or program. Now, let's think that we're talking about public opinion, right? Because when you set a policy, it's probably you have to look at public opinion and you have to make a consultation. And I just realized that I put the same slide here, but I'm sorry. I'm not going to cut this from the video. Just look at this picture. I mean, what you have in relation to public opinion is people agree upon certain things, and they're not talking about, I mean, imagine that these three people have the same political opinions and they're celebrating because, I don't know, there's I don't know, imagine these people are celebrating the results of an election. It could be something absolutely different. This is a freaking party. This is a concert. This is a, remember concerts? This is the entertainment kind of event. It's a festival, art festival, it's a music festival, whatever. It's the freaking carnival, you know? And they are there because they want to have fun. Nothing to do with politics, nothing to do with economics, maybe a little bit because there's a lot of tourism in there. But yeah, these people are just people having fun, their friends, you know, it's just they're enjoying themselves. The point of putting this picture here and associated it with public opinion, not so much the other things that are here, and it was just my failure actually, is that you're supposed to be like, what is public opinion? When you're in, we're living in a pandemic, you go out with somebody, it's probably somebody you trust. But I mean, do you want to discuss Tinder? Does the public have an opinion on Tinder, for example? I don't know, man. These are the users of Tinder here. They are, I thought somebody was calling up my name. They are super happy because they are all users of Tinder who have success on the platform. I said I wasn't gonna be explicit, so yeah. So they're happy. They're happy. Something is happening after they leave the party. I don't know, man. But like, there you go. You have An example of something that should be a consensus, right? Is Tinder good or bad? What's the public opinion? I don't know. People have to make decisions. This girl here would have to make a decision if she wants something to do with this guy, if she ever considers like having a romantic relationship with a guy like that. Maybe she likes the girl actually. I don't know. Who's here to say? Here's what I want to make clear, and more or less the point of the video. When you're talking about public, there's just a language observation. You're talking about public or the audience. At least in Brazil, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but talking to the public opinion, talking to the public is talking to your audience, right? But it is the same thing, but there are two words that exist for a reason, right? So public or audience, what are you talking about? Of course, you know that public can be the opposite of private, right? So that's why the public is the opposite of private. Audience is the opposite of what? When you don't have an audience, you're speaking to yourself, correct? When you don't have an audience, actually, if somebody wants to work with the opposite of having an audience, it's not being alone or whatever. It's just, you know, there's not a performance going on. There is not the goal is not to is not mass communication, let's say. So you don't really have an audience, right? So this is because we have you know, friends who have 10,000 followers on Instagram and friends who don't even use the platform, for example. It's interesting to, you know, put these two concepts together. But imagine streaming, for example, and then I come to the point of this picture. You have a TV, you have a river, the stream of the river. And the stream of the river is actually being reproduced on the TV. And imagine that you don't have a TV, you have a cell phone and you're making a live with the literal stream. That's the guy who made this picture was a brilliant guy. But, you know, of course, this is photoshopped, but I mean, streaming has to have policy, right? You can't say certain words on YouTube, for example, because you're going to get banned. You can't say certain things on a live on Instagram because they're going to do the same thing. You can't do certain things on a TikTok live, for example, because they're going to ban you. And then I come to the definition of public again. This is in my master's project, by the way. Public or private? If you're streaming, you can't possibly believe that that you are in private, correct? It depends. Are you having a private video call with somebody? That's a private video call. It's not public, or at least it shouldn't be. And then we come back to the question of policy. What is the definition of policy? Let's go back again. Set of ideas or plans that is used as a basis for making decisions, especially in politics, economics, or business. Is this related to the stream you watch of some kid playing a game? I mean, is that politics? I don't think so. They're related to your video call. I mean, your video call is private. Your video call is not. You don't have a set of ideas or plans when you have a video call. You're not making big decisions. You just want somebody's company. It's communication. person to person, not politician to politician, not business to business. Are you crazy? It's just two people talking. So that is why it's important to define policy, and it is important to update the concepts. Talking to people who are specialists in the subject. Now, consumer, completely different concept. Client, let's just think of a public or audience. Consumer of content, well, that is part of your audience if you're a content producer. Clients, well, if this person has a consistently the more formal relationship with you, then it's your client. It's not only your consumer. And clients also because they're paying. Consumer, not necessarily. Well, they are paying for an internet service provider, but you know, to consume content is it's a specific word because they say because you know the reader, for example, reader is not a consumer. If I'm reading a book, I'm not a consumer of the book. I'm a reader. Already paid. A consumer if you're talking to a bookshop owner. I'm actually a client, right? Consumer if I'm watching something on YouTube, for example, because I paid for the internet service provider to have access to that. User is my identification on the internet. But I mean, is this really accurate? User, the user is okay. This Twitter user, this Facebook user, but every platform has a different thing, different questions that they ask, different sections, different purposes. Yeah, communication. Okay, but for what purpose? What are some of the things that the platform focuses on? What is some of the content that they try to promote more actively? I mean, it really depends, and they have to constantly update them because the user makes the platform, not the platform. It's not the case that the platform makes the user, but policy is there to constantly update this relationship. Now, and you can have many discussions based on that alone, but I mean, a person has an email account, you know, user of Google account. You sign terms of use because you're going to be using the Google service. You're going to be called the user with this identification. But also, I mean, this is different than an internet user in general terms. But I mean, your device, your address, and your identification. These are different, absolutely different things. And there's a lot of user protection laws that were enacted. Before they were enacted, people still have had a very poor and vague idea of who the user was because they didn't see the user as a person. I personally think that they still don't. They still don't. The user is the user. I'm not talking about the person, I'm talking about the user. Male or female, age group, lives where. That's the user, information about the user. That's how data is collected. It's not a coincidence that Facebook rebranded themselves as Meta because knowing who people are is Facebook's main interest. It's not how they market themselves. They market themselves as the platform that connects people. Again, stealing Nokia's slogan. But, you know, there are good and bad things about Facebook or Meta. Actually, Meta, don't think I can say anything about that because I don't know what they're thinking about in the future. But person friend, for example, different relationship. Anybody here interested in semiotics? If you're not, pause the video, go do something else. If you are, you see what I mean, don't you? Person friend. Now, see how the relationship changes. And I don't mean anything specific ending with parents, but imagine boyfriend and girlfriend. That's not a user. It's not an internet user. Your boyfriend is not just another internet user. And that should be focusing policy decisions. Because if we don't have this perception in the public opinion, in the definition, we are going to have problems. Now, examples of public policy. I imagine you're a journalist, you're posting fake news. Did you cite your sources? No. Get the hell out of here. Except you can't really make these people get the hell out. Freedom of expression. Is this a clear public policy? No, absolutely not. Because people think that the internet should be free. You're not citing your sources. Okay, no problem, no problem. No. It's all right. Don't need to do that. Twitter wouldn't exist if everybody was required to cite their sources. Right or wrong. Don't use foul language. Example of widespread public policy, but of course, we know that changes if you're talking about different kinds of content. I'm not even going to say adult content, because if I say that, well, it's a little bit of inaccuracy. Oh my God. Established consent. Well, this is not a case of public policy. I just put this here to say what is not an example of public policy. Established consent is common sense. Common sense. We go back to public opinion, not so much, man. We go back to the set of ideas, actually. We go back to the definition of consent in this case, subject matter. Consent is, well, look at this picture here. They are consenting to do something, right? Imagine a situation like that. When we talk about consent, we normally, the topic is, you know, the things you are comfortable with doing with a partner, right? But it is a thing that we should be looking at in terms of public policy, yes. In Brazil, there is a popular saying that says, you don't put your spoon, you don't interfere in a husband and wife's fight. And then there is a whole conception that you do put your spoon in a husband and wife fight. What if the husband is doing something against the wife that is not good, right? And we can keep this in the generical terms for the purpose of making this a discussion that especially younger people can participate in, right? But you're free to draw your own conclusions, because especially because it's no secret that kids these days, they can live very traumatic situations when they're really young. So I mean, yeah, you've probably seen cases of domestic violence because we live in the world that we do today. We should have clear and you know, definitions, maybe with morals and concepts in our head, and education plays a very important role, but culture also does, and context. I mean, but I think it's not necessary to say that I do not consider domestic violence a very serious problem in the society that we live today. It is, but it's not only domestic violence. There are cases of the language violence, discursive violence, verbal violence, and this has to do with consent. The most, I'm not going to set this video to be like available, suitable or made for kids. No, it's not made for kids. Maybe one day I'll do something like that. But for example, imagine that you have a friend that is bothered with being called the F word, right? Imagine someone who is bothered with being called the N word. How about that? Imagine someone who is bothered being called the B word. You see, thin line. Another example of public policy. Say thank you to the customer. Isn't that a public policy? Maybe it's a customer policy. But I mean, most people do that. Some people don't. Now, the question that I want to put is this public policy or individual posture? Here is an obvious example, mask mandates. We have a situation here where you are in a medical environment, a hospital. There's a surgery being performed here. They have to wear masks. That's obvious, right? I'm gonna do my best not to talk too much on this video, so I'm just gonna say the obvious: mask mandates in this situation. But is it obvious? Look at these two. Sign that says that if you're going to cross the street, you're supposed to press the button. The hand indicates that. If you are crossing the street, press the button. If you are crossing the street, press, where's the button? I think this is the button, but yeah, maybe it works in a different way. Maybe if you're a tourist, you'd be confused, like, is this the button? Do I just put my hand over here under the thing? Do I press this thing? I mean, how are they gonna, is it approximation? This is reads the palm of my hand, and it's just like the temperature thingies, and then the traffic lights will stop with a timer. Anyway, I mean, if you're crossing the street, you should do this. But what if there are no cars coming? Isn't it obvious that if there are no cars coming and it's a small town or whatever, you can just freaking cross the street? Apparently it's not obvious, because in the United States, for example, there's a thing called jaywalking. A police officer can stop you and give you a fine if you cross the street in a place that is not the crosswalk. In many countries, actually, look at Japan, man. Look at Japan. Ever seen Japanese people crossing the street? Is it obvious? Just put here the symbol of balance. Hammer here for this represents the legal side of it. So there are laws, for example, jaywalking. I should Google jaywalking to find out what this is. But traffic laws, that there are many. I'm not a driver, so I'm not even aware of some of the traffic laws that people are supposed to respect and stuff. Yeah. situations and approach for researchers. And now you maybe begin to understand why I'm making this video. I am a researcher. Let's look at open questions and targeted questions. Okay. And if you're interested in seeing this video for, to debate this with in the area where you work, maybe let's see if we can make use of these examples in your case. Right? So imagine a situation like this. You're teaching kids. You're a teacher. You're a teacher. You're teaching kids. Or you are a kid and you're talking to another kid. What do you think is the most useless rule at home? Well, stop right there, Ivo. You can't say, ask a question like this if you're a teacher. The teacher is doing something for the kid and for the parents of that kid. Not specifically, but yeah, for the parents of that kid who is your student, right? So stop right there, Ivo, okay? You're not supposed to ask this, but I mean, why not? Well, Ivo, because then you're treating them as your friends, and they're not your friends. They're actually, in this case, you're working in a private school, they're clients. They're your students. They're students. Your teenagers. I think, I honestly, personally think this would be totally fine to ask teenagers, but it would cause some conflict. So I would not. But to be honest, maybe I would. So maybe I'm being convenient, but I'm not asking this question. I've never asked this question. I've asked adults. And then we have a little debate. Not just because I asked a question, I am going to put them against their parents or something like that. I am starting a debate. And then you can hear different opinions. It's part of my job to do something like that. So I defend that this is now ask around the schools if this is an appropriate question. Ask around the schools. Policy, definition of policy. What do you think is the most useless rule at home? Everybody will be talking, but it is inappropriate to ask this kind of question. Really? Really? This is an open question. Now look at what's happening here. This kid either wants to listen to music or to break this headset, because I don't know what he's doing here. The dog, I mean, the dog looks clean, but that's a carpet, expensive couch. I mean, and why the hell is he wearing a leash? Now, apparently the mom, I suppose, and dog mom is concerned because she doesn't know if the paws are clean. Well, what a huge concern, isn't it? She's not looking at her kid who's about to break the headset into the floor. She doesn't even know what's happening in this girl's life, and she's absolutely fixated in her phone. But she's worried about the dog and whether the freaking carpet is clean. And we're not supposed to ask what the most useless rule at home is? Really, really? Open question. What laws would you change? That is a more complicated question. You don't ask this to a kid. You just don't. right? If they ask you, well, you're gonna find yourself in a hard time trying to explain your point of view, especially because you have to know the laws. And well, some people just don't because they've never read it. Don't know because they've never read it. I didn't know that I was supposed to declare my income until the point that I started earning a salary that was I was almost there, and I may have some problem with that till this day, because I had access to the documents, the detailed earnings of that year, but it's a complicated situation where I was moving from one place to another. So let's just say I lost access to the documents. I requested access later to confirm that I was not mandatorily, that I was supposed to have declared in that specific year my income. In Brazil, if you earn more than 30,000, I think it's 29 and something, 30,000 real a year, you're supposed to fill in a bunch of detailed information and send it to the equivalent of the IRS, people who deal with taxes and stuff. So yeah, what laws would you change? Open question. So this is a discussion you might want to have with people, right? Depending on where you are. Now, look at this targeted question. The picture here is just for illustrative purposes, but from 1 to 10, how would you rate this, or that? Imagine what they're just thinking about the question, right? Just thinking about the question. How would you rate this or that? She gave a different answer than her friend, so they're kind of upset. I don't know, could be anything. Could be having relationship problems, and I don't know, this girl has an opinion about this girl's boyfriend, or maybe it's a completely different situation, but this is a lot more specific, man. Targeted question. And look at this, from 1 to 10. So when I mean specific, I mean people, although it's specific, people make wrong assessments based on that. Oh, but you're supposed to trust the data because we are data scientists. Sorry, brother, I do research too, and sometimes we can disagree. Another targeted question: which of the listed platforms are you active on? Imagine for a second that this girl just found out that this guy is still on Tinder and they are dating. She's super upset. The guy was supposed to freaking delete the app because he's in a relationship with this girl. But it's been 2 months and the guy hasn't done that. She's upset. He is... What's your excuse, buddy? What's your excuse? Oh, you forgot? You forgot? She can't believe that. She can't believe that, right? It's just an example of a situation. But it could be something completely different, man. Which of the listed platforms are you active on? The guy just found out that the girl is in a platform that he would never assume that she was on. And he can't believe it, but she can't believe it that it's such a freaking big deal for the guy. Inverting the dynamics here. Now, to conclude, why do we need to talk about policy? Because there are questions of age-appropriate content that are currently being discussed on the web. Not currently, but it's been discussed for a while. Because we are talking about task-appropriate compensation. I'm talking about money. Talking about money. Some people do a lot of work and they don't even get paid. I'm talking about zero, okay? 3, supply chain. Well, we got to talk about policy, but that's a lot more specific. Inflation, we got to talk about policy, but that's a lot more specific. Gender appropriate perception. That depends on where you go and who you're talking to. Culture. There's certain things in relation to policy that are related to culture. Yes. And it's more than a culture clash. Sometimes you're talking even about religion and stuff, and some things are just, you know, in an international context, you're gonna come across certain policy issues because it's not just culture clash. If there is a clash, it's a question of belief. It's a question of values. It's a question of positioning in certain situations. So it's more than just, you know, I have this behavior, you have this behavior, and I have this habit, you have this habit. It's about more than that. Sometimes. Discourse, we definitely need policy about discourse, but some people disagree with that. They say that in the First Amendment of the United States, freedom of speech is guaranteed, and there should be, therefore, no policy on discourse. Well, hold your horses. Taking action, there's policy about taking action. Are you reporting somebody that didn't do anything wrong? You're taking action. What's the policy? They are going to do something to the person who is maybe violating the terms of use. But if you're talking about a web situation, but is that a valid report? Is that a false report? And then let's not make this exaggerate this point, because I think you all know what my positioning is. There are organizations that you can go to in terms of taking action. It's not just the platform, and sometimes the platform deals with so much stuff. Policy is handy here, but making policy is certainly not easy, especially because things change and they change really fast. There are organizations where you can, for example, report things that the platform can't do by itself. And there are existing platforms that simply take no action because they are not organized enough to be taking action in case something wrong happens. So this is more or less what I had to say. As you can see, it's a complex theme, and education plays a very important role in making people aware that we can be friends, but we can have disagreements even though we have a friendship. We're not supposed to be enemies, but I can strongly disagree with you. And if you do something that violates a certain kind of agreement that we had, or if I think that you are minimizing or again, violating my rights and disrespecting in any way my history, my values, or my body, or you know, I could say that I would be likely not to consider you my friend, but maybe, I don't know. Here in Brazil, again, there's a popular saying that imagine, listen to the song, you send a link, the guy doesn't listen to the song. I'm gonna slap you. Is he? Is she? Maybe she does, he does, and I don't really mind. So it's important to have this kind of discussion, you know. But of course, we're not talking about the fact that, oh, people are not listening to songs. Sometimes people's voices are being silenced, and that's a much more serious debate that we need to be having. Okay, this is it for now. If you like the content, please like and subscribe, share it with your friends, and add to the discussion if you want to make any comments. All right, this is it. I hope you enjoyed this debate. And next time I have a big idea, I'll come back with another video. Okay, take care, y'all.